Hey there Internet, my name is Mark and I'm here to present my entry for Game Chef 2014. It's called Die Squadron. I'm calling it an entry because actually I didn't really follow the rules or the theme or anything whatsoever. So I just decided that I was going to participate in this board game jam. And turns out it was more like a role-playing gig stuff. So I ended up making something that was completely out of the rules of the contest. Anyway, the theme on this year was there is no book. So actually the word book does not appear anywhere in this game. So technically I'm in, kinda, almost, probably not. So yeah, I made this video because since the game needs some components, probably people are not gonna print and play this thing. So I'm better off just explaining the rules and showing how the game plays in the video. So yeah, I said components, but it's basically just a few cards, you can see here, and a bunch of dice. So yeah, a big bunch of dice. The game is called Die Squadron, so it makes sense. The cat is optional. So yeah, so here's how the game works. You have a squadron of 4 guys, right? 4 dudes with guns, very, very mature. And they're gonna fire at some space goblins. Yes, I'm a man-child. So the way this works is that you each roll dice. So you pick a squadron. So I have here Lieutenant Fritz and Commander Herman, Blitzkrieg. They're German, of course. That's why they're called the Die Squadron. And hence the Technomage. And these little tokens, which work kind of like a miniature, and also to show when the turn's over, stuff like that. And the main way that this game works is by throwing dice at other dice until your dice beat the other dice. So yeah, we have 3 main dice types here, which are this red one, which is melee. This is melee. The gray one, which is ranged, and the blue one, which is cover. So these are regular 6-sided dice. I just made them look like they belong together by color, but they're, for all intents and purposes, these are regular dice. So the way they work is that they work like rock, paper, scissors. So melee dice, they're better against cover, cover is better against ranged, and range is better against melee. So how do you actually pair these die up? So for instance, if an enemy has rolled a 4 melee, right, and you want to take out that 4 melee, what you do is that you roll, for instance, another melee die, which is not good against melee, and you're gonna need a result of 4 or more to be able to remove that. So if I roll a 5 here, I can remove this 4, and there we go. However, if I roll, for example, a 2, I would not be able to remove this dice. The same thing goes for cover. So if I roll a 3, for instance, this is not 4 or more, so I cannot remove this dice. But ranged is a good die against the red one, the melee. So if I roll a 2, even though 2 is smaller than 4, I can actually stop trying to camera on the video. I'm not playing with you. Yeah, give me some space here, please. No, give me some space. We're gonna have to cut for technical reasons. Be right back. Okay, where were you? Oh yes. So yeah, if I roll a 2, 2 is actually a good die to be rolled against 4, because even if it's a lower value and I cannot fully remove this dice, what I can do is remove the point. So I roll the 3 against the 4, for instance, and the 4 becomes a 1, which then makes it easier for another dice, such as these 2, to take out the 1, right? So this is good against melee. So the same thing goes melee against ranged. So melee against cover. So if I roll range against cover, I cannot remove this cover, right? So this is useless. If I roll 1 against this cover, I can remove 1 point like this, and now my 2 can remove this dice, and so forth and so on. So this is the main thing about Die Squadron. Everything else comes out of this main dice relationship. So we have a few more dice type here, which I'm going to explain in just a moment. So you can see, you check the character sheet, they're going to tell you, let me just focus here. There you go. It's going to tell you right here how many dice you start the game with, as well as skills for each character. So you can see all of them have these different values for dice. So we're going to do just that. So 2 ranged and 1 tactics here. I'm going to explain tactics in just a moment. There we go. We're going to do 1 melee, 1 ranged, one of each, and 2 tactics. There we go. And 2 tactics. Mr. Dicey here. There we go. We're going to need 2 melee for this one. And 1 cover. And finally, 1 ranged, 2 cover, and 1 tactics. So the tactics dice, these are very special dice. They cannot be used to directly remove any of the other 3 main dice types, but they're very important for reasons that I'm going to explain right now. First of all, when you're done like picking your starting dice, you make your tactical dice pool. This is a shared pool between all characters, so all of these 4 tactical dice that these guys have now form a single tactical dice pile that I'm going to put right here. These dice are used throughout the round to activate skills and try to pretty much execute missions, debuff enemies, pretty much give you tactical options, as the name implies. So let's take a look at an enemy, shall we? So we can explain the last dice type, which is time. You can see here. So yes, this is an encounter card. Turns out it is a combat card, which means that we have to spawn enemies. These lines here, they indicate that we have 2 enemies to spawn, and they also indicate how many dice of each type that this spawn has, and also if they have tactical dice or not, and their skills, as well as the value in mission points. I'm gonna get to that. So there we go. Put these little guys here, Goblin Skirmishers. So as the card says, we need to spawn 2 guys, and they have 1 ranged, 1 melee, 1 cover, and 1 time each. So we're going to separate another one of these like so. There we go. Now we roll these dice together to form the enemy. So there we go, with 1 time. Another one. Wow. That's dangerous. Okay, with 2 time. So here we go. The enemy is laid out like this, with the card behind and the 2 enemies that were spawned, right? Usually you get a lot more enemies at the same time in this game. I'm just gonna focus on these 2 for now for the example. So how do you actually beat these guys? So you're gonna notice that as well as all those dice type that we saw in the other cards, they have this time dice. This is exclusive for enemies and some special cards. It means that in 1 action, this guy is going to attack us. This guy is going to have to wait 2 actions. And what is an action? So every turn you get 1 action for each character. So pretty much we have 4 actions, and then our turn is ended. But we know that this guy is going to attack as soon as one of our guys attack. So we have to choose which guy is the best one to take that guy out. So you see, remember when I said that melee is good versus cover? Right, so cover 5 is going to be super tough to take out with ranged, because if I roll ranged die, for instance, if I use Fritz, who has 2 ranged die, I'm going to need to roll 5 in one of these die at least to take out that. While if I, for example, attack him with Blitzkrieg, which has 2 melee dice, I only need to roll a total of 5 here to remove that cover. Maybe I even have a shot of taking out this 5 here, or the 6 if I luck out. This is a super dangerous enemy, super tough to take out. I roll super high values here. Maybe, okay, just for this example. So what I'm gonna do is attack this guy with Blitzkrieg. and I put Blitzkrieg's token here to indicate that he is attacking this enemy. This means that when this enemy attacks, he always going to attack the guy who is closest to him. So when this triggers, this one time triggers, he's going to attack Blitzkrieg and not the other guys, right? So, and I flip the card over so we know that this guy already did his action for the turn. When all the guys are flipped over, I know that the turn has ended. So let me roll the tactical die. I should have rolled before, no problem, I can roll it now. There we go. So 6, 5, 2, and 2. And there we go. Just focus the camera here a little bit. There we go. So this is our tactical dice pool. Not bad. Could have been better, but could have been worse. So what are we gonna do? We're gonna roll 2 melee dice against these guys. So that's 2 little dice. I'm not comfortable with this. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna ask for support. Ask my teammates for support. So the first use of tactical dice, I can discard any of my tactical die to ask for support of one of my teammates. Which means that we're gonna attack that enemy together, and we're only going to advance 1 unit in time. So I'm gonna ask for support of Hans here. I'm gonna put Hans behind me against this enemy. But Hans can, when supporting, Hans cannot add all of his dice, only 1. I'm gonna ask him to provide me with a ranged dice. So now I have 2 melee and 1 ranged dice, and I am discarding this tactical dice here to do this action. So let's do it. Rolling. Wow, 2 6s and a 3. So with this 6, I can discard this 5, and the 6 becomes a 1 because it's melee versus cover, right? If I use range, it would not be as effective. So this is gone already. So now I have to deal with this 5 and this 6, and I only have a 1 melee, a 6 melee, and a 3 range. What I want to do is basically I'm screwed here. I can take all of these dice, but what I can do is activate a skill. So these 2 guys here, right, they're attacking, so I can trigger skills from both of them if I want to take out this guy. So let's see. Blitzkrieg, right here, he can add 1 to melee die in his current roll, or add 2 to melee die in his current roll. Adding 2 would be really good for us right now. We can also trigger some of the Hans's skills, such as Squadron, which I can re-roll 1 of my dice if I'm not happy with the results, and Hex, which means I can re-roll 1 enemy dice if I think it's too high. So, but right now, I think that if I trigger Blitzkrieg's skill, I can take both dice and win this fight. So what I'm going to do, I am going to activate Hit Harder, which is, you can see here, it costs 4 to activate. So I need to discard a tactical die of value 4 or higher. So I'm going to discard this 5 here to activate the skill. So Hit Harder, it says that I have to add 2 to any melee die in my roll. So I'm going to add 2 to this die and make it a 3, which gives us just what we need. Because right now, I'm going to pair this 3 against this 5 right here. So since range is effective against melee, this 5 is going to become a 2. There we go. So I can use now this 6 to take out this 6 right here. And finally this 3 to take out this 2. Now the enemy is out of dice, he's dead. And now that I have made my action, these 2 guys, there's no enemy left for them to face. They come back here to indicate that they're all at the same distance from one another. And all of the time dice on the table are reduced by 1 point. So this 2 becomes a 1. So now this guy is going to act. Actually, I kind of cheated there a little bit because I did not want to explain the last thing about tactical dice, which is enemies have skills as well. So you can see here, they have this quick little bastards, which costs 4. It makes me reroll my highest die which would be terrible in that circumstance that we're just in. So it's indicating here that it rolls 1 tactical dice. So if we would come back in time to that roll we just made, that enemy, after I roll my dice, the enemy will roll his, and 4, there it goes. So this would basically screw me up, because it would force me to discard one of my 6 results, right? And I don't want this to happen, right? Especially because I already discarded all the dice. But I really don't want this to happen. So what I can do, if I don't want to deal with these consequences, is to spend a tactical die that is of equal or greater value as the enemy's. So I can spend my 6 here to remove these 4. And now I ignore the enemy's skill. So that was my first action in the game. It seemed like a good action because I actually removed an enemy, a powerful enemy, in 1 strike. But actually I wasted 3 of my tactical dice, and I'm now out of tactical options during the rest of my turn. However, after all my characters have made their actions, I am going to be able to re-roll all of my tactical die and draw a new encounter card. So after everyone have acted, I get a full new hand, and everyone can act again. So before I end this video, let me just show other types of encounters you can have, and also talk about items. I forgot to talk about items. So this encounter here that I just drew is called Hull Breach. So it's a mission. Missions are special kind of types of encounters because they stay on the table like this, but they do not attack you. What they do is, you gotta read the card actually. So this guy here, he has 2 time dice, you can see here. And when the time reaches 0, every character takes 1 wound. Each enemy discards a cover die. Discard. So when Hull Breach triggers, everyone in my party takes damage, but the enemy also loses their cover. If I don't want this terrible thing to happen, I can use, for instance, so let's roll the 2 time dice for this motherfucker. So 5, so you sum them up, right? So in 5 turns this is going to activate, right? 5 actions. So if I want to remove this card, I will need to spend at once 2 tactical dice with values of 4 or higher, which is quite expensive, and I don't have that option right now. If I wanted to, I could spend 1 tactical dice with a value of 2 or higher to add 1 to the time dice of this card. So effectively delaying this card but not stopping it. And of course, when I do all these things during my turn, what happens is that I start to kind of lack tactical options. I need to figure out what's more important for me right now. Is it activating skills? Is it triggering a support? Or is it maybe completing one of these missions? And missions sometimes are good. So if I draw this other encounter here, it's called Find the Drop Zone. So this is a good mission. So if I just leave it here on the table, anytime I want I can complete missions, and this is no different. So if I'm feeling like I want to complete this mission, I can pay 2 tactical dice of value 4 or higher to draw a knighting card and then defeat this card, right? So items, my guys start with some items. Fritz, he starts with grenade. Commander Herman has 2 scanners. Blitzkrieg has timed explosives. And Hans the Technomage has bubble shield, 2 bubble shields. So these all give you tactical options, such as scanner can enhance your tactical dice, grenade can take out groups of enemies, but they can damage your friends if they're engaged. We have timed explosives, which slows all enemies down, but it costs us some tactical dice to use. And bubble shield allows me to add an extra cover to a defense roll. So I think before I wrap this up and say, hey, this is Dice Squadron, there are 2 things that I need to explain. So how do you win the game? What's the goal of the game? You need to you see these little points here? These are mission points. Whenever you defeat a card in a combat or paying the tactical value of that, you keep this card with you like experience points. And when these points reach 20, we advance to the second stage of the operation we're playing, which usually means that it gets harder. And after we get more 20 points after that, we get to fight a boss, which here it is. So my boss here is the War Chief, which is pretty badass. You can see for the amount of dice going on here. So yeah, and the last thing is wound dice. So this last brown little dice type here, this is the damage you can take. Whenever you take damage in Dice Squadron, you have to take one of these dice and add to your pool. So every time you roll dice, you're gonna add this little sucker here. So you have to deal with its effects. You get worse fighting when you're more wounded. So here's what happens. So you roll the dice, and you get this, which means that you have to remove 1 point from one of your other dice. So if I want, I can just completely remove this dice here, or I can turn this dice into a 4, for instance. So there's a special, and how do you die? There's 2 ways to die in this game. You can you can surpass your limit. So Fritz, for instance, he can only hold 2 wound dice. If he ever gets the third one, he instantly dies. But there's also a risk. So every time you roll the cover dice, the wound dice, you have a chance to die. And this happens when you roll 1/2 of the skull. And where's the other one? The other half of the skull. So if you ever roll the 2 halves of the skull, you're dead. But it's not all bad news, because every one of these characters have a die ability, which triggers when they die, and it's usually pretty awesome. It sweeps the game board. So for instance, this guy here, he can play that. So he rolls 3 ranged dice, distributed against any enemies you want, and ignoring cover. So this is pretty balling right here. So even if you die, you can kind of die swinging in this game. So yeah, I would like to thank very much the 2 artists that lent their arts for my prototype. So for the characters here, it's the art of Ian Toti. He makes some pretty badass dudes with guns and robots and shit like that. You should definitely check his portfolio. And we have, for the orcs and enemies and stuff like that, we have Aaron T. Paulson, also known as Blognark. He makes some really cool goblin and stuff. So thank you very much, guys, for lending me the art for this prototype. Too bad I'm certainly not gonna win Game Chef with this, because it makes no sense what I just did. But yeah, I made a cool game. I'm really proud of it, and I hope you guys like it as well. And I hope I can continue designing this game. It's super unbalanced right now. It lacks spacing. Sometimes it's too easy, sometimes it's too hard. It pretty much sucks, kind of sucks. But I'm definitely gonna find more time, maybe after Chroma Squad ships or something like that, to turn this into a full commercial game. Who knows? So yeah, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed that. See you next time. Bye bye.